All right. Well, hey, welcome everyone to the very first episode of the Print on Demand Playbook. My name is Rusty Pepper. I'll be the host for the series. And in addition to being a champion for the print on demand market, I'm also the head of new markets partnerships at Taylor, which is a privately held multi-billion dollar back-end print and visual communications company. Our goal for this series, I think it's really important for us to kind of talk about, take a few minutes to talk about like how this all came about and what our goals are for the time together. So we really want to try to provide the industry with a forum where we can all explore a wide range of topics. We can share ideas, exchange tips, best practices, and really hear from industry experts from across all different facets of the industry that really try and gain a 360-degree view of the print-on-demand market and how it all affects our businesses. To help us dive into these topics today, I've invited three industry experts from different parts of that industry to really share their insights. We've got Mike Scrudden. He's the Director of Print Technology and Strategy at Adobe, and he'll be representing and sharing insights from the software and design side of the industry. Next, we've got Melissa Stevens. She's the Chief Marketing Officer at Fedrigoni Special Papers, and Melissa will be sharing her perspective as a supplier to the print industry. And last but not least, we've got Craig Lennon, who is the CEO of Hybel, and Craig will be sharing his insights from the print aggregator and reseller part of the market. And should there be a need or relevant, I'll also happily contribute any thoughts from the print fulfiller's perspective. So now let's discuss how we're going to spend our time during the session today. I'll be asking each of our panelists a series of rapid fire questions, and they'll each have 3 to 4 minutes to respond. And after that rapid fire section is over, we'll then open it up for a Q&A round with you, the audience, where y'all can ask whatever questions you want to the panel or myself, and we'll try to get it through as many of those as possible. But before we get started, a few quick housekeeping items. I believe I've muted everybody, but in case you are able to come off mute, just keep on mute unless you're on the panel, just to help avoid any kind of distractions or background noise. If you do have any questions that you want to ask during the session, click the Ask Q&A button on the right-hand toolbar, not the chat, but the Q&A one, because that's where we're going to be pulling the questions during the Q&A round for the last 15 minutes. And finally, and this is a really important one, a big, big thank you to D-Scoop for their support in making this series possible. D-Scoop's dedication to fostering collaboration within the print community, it's inspiring, and we're all honestly better for what they bring to the industry. So thank you, D-Scoop. Now, without further ado, let's get this party started. Mike, Melissa, Craig, welcome to the Print on Demand Playbook. And in that order, if you could each briefly introduce yourselves to our audience and share one fun or interesting thing about you that not everyone may know. I'll go first on that last point because I've already done my introduction. Both my first and my last names are common dog names, Rusty and Pepper. Think about that. So, Mike, take it away.
Hey, guys. Good to be with everybody today. It's sunny here on the west coast of the United States. I'm Mike Scrudden. I'm the Director of Print Technology and Strategy at Adobe, which is a big falutin title. But I've been in the print industry for over 30 years, been with Adobe over 25 years, specializing particularly in the back end of the workflow, close to where the rips would be. We work with all the big manufacturers like HP, Canon, Epson, and so on, making sure that the Adobe technology that they're integrating with their solutions matches the expectations of the customers. You don't spend 25 plus years at Adobe without having a good understanding of some of the end-to-end stuff. So as Rusty said, that's why I'm here today. I have contributed to Acrobat and Illustrator and InDesign and Photoshop and the recent Adobe Express in the past. So we can talk about all of those things in an end-to-end context, all powered by PDF probably.
What is your interesting point?
My interesting thing is I used to be in radio.
You got the voice for it.
So you really did. You actually,
But the follow-up to that is that having been a transplant from the UK 17 years ago, everybody, when you go and meet them, they say, "Oh, I love your accent." The really strange thing is you go back to the United Kingdom and nobody comments on your accent, and it's really disappointing. I don't get it.
That's so funny. You're back with your all your friends,
right?
Well, I think then I was up next in the order. So hello and happy to be here and have the chance to be part of this conversation. And I am sure it was going to be very interesting and, as always, dynamic with the D-Scoop community. Way back when, in the very early days, I fell in love with print when I was invited to a press check with a client, which just happened to be on Mohawk paper as a side note. But what I found and quickly learned was my passion. I love to be a part of the creative process. And I love to make beautiful objects that mean something to, a brand, a consumer, a customer. And so, 25 years later, I have had the great fortune of being able to be part of all aspects of this industry, from marketing and sales and product development, even, part of operations and distribution. The great opportunity to have a very diverse career within Mohawk, as well as, just the continuous learning that comes from our community and our industry. So now I am with, after a very long career with Mohawk, we were acquired by Fedrigoni Special Papers back in February of this year. And now I have just the incredible opportunity to lead marketing strategy for not only Mohawk, but the Fedrigoni brands here in North America. And in case this community might not be as familiar with Fedrigoni, they are based in Italy, and they have been making beautiful, beautiful papers for, well over 100 years, dating all the way back to the early days of, creating the watermark for the industry. But they take it that next step further: environmental, stewardship, connected solutions, and the possibility of what else can you do? What else can you make? How else can you shape ideas through paper? And so thrilled to be part of that and joining you all here today. And my fun fact, yes. Gosh, well, I was going to go with the early, what could my career be? Which, by the way, my first job was to be a limo driver. And if anybody knew this, I am 5 feet tall. So when I would show up with that limo, folks would genuinely be very much like, what are you doing? You're But I think my fun fact would be the fact that I have been trying to master here the ability to make homemade pasta. And who knew I'd end up working for an Italian company, but it's not as easy as it seems to make really good pasta at home. So with that, I will leave it all.
I like it. So we got radio so far. We got limo, pasta maker. Greg, yeah. No pressure here, but
yeah, no, I'll think of something good. So yeah, my name's Craig Letton. I'm the CEO of a company called Hybo, and we're a marketing technology company. And our kind of background in the print industry is I actually took over the family print business about 13 years ago, and decided to pivot the business towards technology. So we actually shut down our printing operation and focused on the front end of the technology, and specifically the area where salespeople in the drinks industry, who are our customers, are able to create marketing materials themselves on the fly. So similar to what you might see in Adobe Express or Canva, but specifically focused on enterprise, and within that focus specifically on the alcohol vertical. So we work with big name suppliers like Diageo, Bacardi, Pernod Ricard, and also large distributors like Southern Glazers in the US. So been in the industry a long time, and my father was a member of D-Scoop, as am I, and we've actually built our global print network through D-Scoop. So all of the printers that we've met and now do business with have come through that network. And it was actually Rusty that connected me to Taylor, who's one of our big print partners here in the US. So delighted to be here. And I think today my kind of focus will really be on print on demand in the enterprise space. And that's where we're 100% focused. We've always been in print on demand from 2001 when my dad started the business with a HP 1000 press. And that's all we've ever done. And what we're seeing now is a huge move in the market towards on demand. So our big customers are getting frustrated with spending a lot of money on print marketing that ends up in a warehouse that often never makes it to market and actually ends up being incinerated or recycled. So our kind of big push here is to disrupt the market and say, actually, that you don't need to do it that way. There's a better way, and it's called print on demand. So we've been doing that for a while now, but the market's starting to catch up, and that's resulted in a huge amount of growth for us. So we're growing at 100% year on year right now, and particularly in the US, which is where I'm based. So that's a bit about the company. And in terms of interesting facts for myself, I guess if we're talking about sort of personal things that are a bit unusual, I've lived in the US and the UK twice now, back and forth. I actually went to high school in the US and picked up a number of American sports, including lacrosse. And when I returned to the UK, I ended up playing for Scotland at lacrosse, which is like a niche within a niche. So that's my kind of personal one. And then something a little bit more interesting is that 2 out of my 3 kids are named after heavy metal bands.
What are the names?
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, so my eldest is called Freya, which is the name of a song by a band called The Sword of Doom. And my youngest is called Corey, named after Corey Taylor from Slipknot and Stone Sour. So, yeah, big rock guy, big sport guy.
Love it. I love it. Yeah, I was thinking maybe an AC/DC, maybe a
Metallica.
Yeah, a little bit more new school than that, but I'm big. I love those bands, and I am slowly indoctrinating my children into rock music.
Oh, good. Well, thank you all for being here today. So we're now let's jump into the speed round or the rapid fire questions. Round one. The topic is going to be the evolution of print on demand. Okay. The order is going to be Melissa, followed by Craig, then Mike. The question is, over the past decade, we've seen major changes and advancements that have transformed the print industry. From your perspectives, what have been the most significant shifts as traditional print transitioned to print on demand, and what key milestones defined this evolution? Melissa, you're up first.
I'm up first. No pressure on that one. So rapid fire, I was bringing in, and I brought in my colleagues to, try and get all perspectives here on this question for you. Because of the substrate and being that supplier focused for us, the evolution and truly that key milestone is really around the print quality that has come for print on demand. When we were able to make that leap from that very dry toner world, and while they were pushing, the bar ahead forward, they never could quite meet that space of offset quality printing. When we were able to cross the threshold into offset quality printing, and we give a nod to our friends at HP Indigo for what they were able to produce back in the early days of 2000. For us, the key milestones there became print quality, what you were able to do, and then the interfaces that came behind it to truly push forward what was doable with those machines. And so when you take the print quality, you take the device, what then became very much possible in the last decade is to create the substrate and the material difference. Up until that place, it was largely a coated, glossy, white paper world. And what the equipment allowed us to do and the interfaces that came with it was differentiate through materials. Along came the opportunity for beautiful uncoated papers, textures, colors, the ability to do heavy cover weights and really allow a brand to create that, that message through materials that couldn't be done in the offset world until, really that last decade. And so for us, we think it's just that space of equipment, the ability to push the boundaries and meet offset printing, right at the line together.
Great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Craig, how do you take it from your side?
Well, I guess for us, there's been 3 kind of key things that have really shaped the print on demand industry in the recent decade, which is the first one is APIs, which will now allow us to plug directly into printers all over the world. Yeah. So, for example, we've got a number of customers in Australia, got a pretty decent sized business there. We partner with a local print company there who came through the D-Scoop network, and I've never even been to Australia. So we have the only way that's been able to do that is through connecting with APIs directly into printers. So we have the same thing with Taylor. So that means when an order is produced on our Hybel technology, when that order is placed, it automatically is routed to our printers, and then it automatically goes into their MIS system. And that's really what, for our customers, it's all about speed to market. How can we get that marketing item to the customer as fast as possible? And it's those kind of connections that allow that speed. And we create the speed of design through our technology, and the speed of the print and the turnaround is through the integrations and the MIS systems that run in the back end. So basically from the order all the way through to the delivery, it's electronically transferred and communicated. So that's been a huge game changer. And we've been able to move into markets. We're in 50 different countries now, and there's just no way we could have done that without these new APIs. And that allowed us to do that. The second bit is the sort of digital print capabilities. So kind of going towards what Melissa was saying around, that's progressed massively. As I said, we had one of the first ever HP Indigos, and I know what that was capable of, and more importantly, not capable of. So now, the capabilities are massive. And what that means is that we can produce a much wider range of items on demand. And that's something Rusty and I have been working on recently about how do we go to customers and say, actually, this catalog of print items that you're looking for, much more, if not all of this, could be done on demand. You don't have to stockpile this and mass print it. And then the final one is kind of automation. So, the way that we measure our turnaround with our customers is from order to delivery. And we typically get it under 4 days in the US, and actually under 2 in the UK. But again, that's all powered through automation. And we think we can actually move faster than that as well. But the automation that we've seen from our printers in the US, in Europe, and in Australia, that's what has enabled that fast round. Is purely automation. So those have been the big drivers for us.
And that's really critical for the enterprise market. What I'm finding from this, just the first round, is just we haven't even got through the whole first round yet. And I'm like, I've got like a million questions in my head. I wish we could just keep double clicking into, but we can't. I'm like, I want to ask Mike. I'll let you close out this round.
Yeah, I think that one of the big changes we've seen is the question about who is the customer, who is the designer, right? We've been used to this idea of print on demand, as Craig would have said, from that press he's bought 25 years ago, as making it more economic to do short runs. And that's been great. And I think in the early days, it was the same people doing the designs, placing the orders, just ordering in smaller volumes so you don't have to warehouse inventory and that sort of thing. But one of the changes we've seen in the last 10 years is the customer has changed, right? Rather than being lots of people involved in the process, going to a marketing department to get your artwork, going to a purchaser to actually place an order, et cetera, the number of roles has condensed. The person making the purchase could well have been the person creating the design. And that person may not have been to art school. They might not have a deep tradition in the art. And that in itself has then, enabled by a couple of things, right? Making the tools easier to use, the diversification of the tools that we've created, but also bringing this new talent pool, a whole bunch of people that we've seen that frankly, went away into the wilderness for a while and designed for the web and designed for Instagram and designed for all these other things. They said, well, I can design now. And now I'd like to print something. And I don't need to print it in huge volume because my needs are relatively small. So how am I then taking the artwork I've got, the tools I've got, the knowledge I've got, and get more task-centric and say, right, now I'd like to make this thing which is small and tangible. And I only ever wanted it in small volumes because it's just me. I'm a solopreneur, or I'm part of a large business, but I have a very small specific task that I need to be able to get print for. I'm not part of a bigger campaign where I would need a massive volume of something. So I think that's one of the biggest changes, I think, that I've seen.
Super interesting. No, thank you for sharing that. That rounds up round one. Let's go to round two now. The topic for round two, growth drivers. The order will be Craig, followed by Mike, then Melissa. And the question for y'all is going to be, the industry has seen countless innovations and technological breakthroughs, with new advancements emerging every day. Based on your specific area of focus, which innovation has had the greatest impact on your business thus far? And is there a future innovation that gets you super excited? And should we be keeping an eye, and what should we keep our eyes out for? Craig, take it.
Sure. Well, I think I'm going to riff off Mike's point, which I thought was excellent, because that's exactly what we do. Our user is actually a sales rep in the drinks industry, so they are not. Well, a small number of them are artists, but the vast majority are not. And our focus has always been to make our design tool as easy as possible to use. So I actually use my 6-year-old as a test user. And my kind of idea is if he can create a really great like cocktail list or beer list or wine list on our app, then a sales rep can do it. And some people might call that kind of the democratization of design, right? So that pretty much anybody can do it, whether you have an artistic skill or not. I mean, I can barely draw a stick man. So these tools have really changed the game. And we kind of take it one step further, where, in our use case, as I said, it's a drink sales rep who's creating an item for a bar or a restaurant or a hotel. So it's a specific kind of customer, but they need to leverage brand assets, right? Logos, imagery, templates that are all within brand guidelines, but they also need to do it within legal guidelines as well because it's a regulated product. That's quite a hard thing to do manually using graphic designers, and that's how it was done previously. And we're now moving all those users into a world where they create the design themselves. So to give you an example, like a real life use case, we've just gone live with the biggest distributor of alcohol in the US. And up until recently, all of their 90% of their designs were being created by a graphic designer. In the last kind of just over 8 months, we've transferred them to a world where now 80% of those designs are done by the end user themselves, and only 20% are done by a designer. And we've seen that shift, across Europe and Australia, but we're now seeing it across the US. And I think that's just going to continue. As Mike was saying, that the kind of customer and the shopper, if that's what they call it in consumer goods, they've changed, right? So the person that's ordering the print now is that person that designed the item. And I think I can only just see it growing in that direction. And I think more and more enterprise users will kind of follow the model that we've kind of taken. And that's all been driven by investment in front end technology, right? Making it easy, simple to design and order print. And when you look at these platforms like Adobe Express, for example, or our platform, they look really simple, but it's really hard to create something very simple and easy to use. And it's really a skill and an art. So for me, I think as that continues to develop, and particularly with the use of AI, it's just going to become easier and easier for people to create great design.
Yeah, there's no doubt the easier that you make it on the front end, the more complex it is on the back end. It's incredibly difficult. And for enterprise, especially, the biggest challenges are working through that workflow and making sure you have accountability, the cost and allocations, brand asset management, lockdown controls, all those things. Those are challenges. And the technology is something we all have to solve for.
Yeah, and the way that we kind of get around that is through standardization, right? Because what we typically find with our customers is that they're ordering loads of different things, all that are kind of, a millimeter or two different. So we tend to kind of standardize the portfolio of products significantly. And that allows us to have a standard catalog with our printer and a standard catalog with our customer. And that allows us to have that rapid fire connection between us. So yeah, there's loads more that can be done, but I think we're just going to see a sort of acceleration of the current trend.
Yeah, well, I think that's perfect. But then for Mike, now you kind of take that up because I'm pretty sure there's going to be some dovetailing into how you're approaching as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the biggest changes that we've seen is technically it's a move away from people sitting at a dedicated workstation at a dedicated office using dedicated software to, in their own little world, do a dedicated task, and move away from that. And the technical change is more stuff happening on the web, right? So design tools inside web browsers, which allows various things like collaboration, for example. I mean, we're used to seeing it in the world of maybe you edit a Google document and a whole bunch of people can go and edit that document at the same time. Well, people expect to be able to use design software that way as well, all right? Be able to get instant feedback on, do you like this? Do you like that? How are we going to change it? How are we going to collaborate? To Craig's point, how do we stay on brand, right? Some of my team may well be professional designers wanting to create content in high-end, maybe desktop software, but others want to be able to use that as they're putting their print design together as well, staying on brand, on color, on font, keeping the right fonts, etc. So that web side of things as a way of deploying software also makes it easier when we get into the world of print on design. Because one of the issues that we've seen in the past is, okay, I'm sat at this computer on this bit of software, right? I can see it on my screen. How do I get it there? How do I get it to the person who's actually going to be doing the printing? And that in itself has traditionally been a bunch of steps. I've got a SideQuest drive sitting on a shelf in my hallway, which I stare at every morning as I come in from walking the dog, right? We used to put things on discs and send a courier to deliver to the destination. And for many years, we tried to optimize that with the web and we'll FTP things to you. But I mean, didn't really solve the problem. We just reduced replace a physical media with an electronic media. But the opportunity, I think, what we've seen coming forward is a really integrated solution. So I can be designing and I can press a button, and that button, without me having to know what's going on, can deliver that artwork to where it needs to be fulfilled. In terms of how that changes in the future, web's been a big catalyst for us in the last few years. Mobile is coming in. I hesitate to see how creative I can be on a screen that is yay big. But for a quick fix up or for a quick change, or to be able to see, oh, what was that thing that we did? Or maybe to do that last mile, press the last button. Certainly viable. And I think what we're seeing is that the distinction between, a big screen on my desk versus a smaller screen that might be on my lap when I'm on a train, or a smaller lap screen which might be in my hand when I'm at the checkout in the grocery store. Those distinctions are beginning to blur.
So, but it sounds like if I'm reading the way you phrase that, though, it sounds like mobile. There's green space there that you guys are really pushing into with technology that maybe because it is hard, I think, for our generation to really try to understand is how can we really get a lot out of this. But I watch my kids.
Totally.
They get way more out of this than I can. I mean, I'm like, just the speed that they're able to move around and interact with it. So there's got to be new innovations that are going to be happening that are going to make that a lot easier, where it's more native for them versus for us. It's like.
Absolutely. We certainly see users around the world, we're in the global industry, where they're mobile first, right? In some geographies particularly, you produce a desktop solution and people don't use it. When the mobile solution comes along, they jump onto it because that's where they're doing everything else in their lives. I think one of the things that we've picked up on is that you can't just take that solution that you'd built for the big screen and then put it on a little screen. People interact with it in a different way, all right? Their expectations are different, but their expectation of what comes out the back end, and they want to get printed because after all, something's going to be delivered to them and they're going to see it in their hands. Their expectations are just as high of the final printed output, irrespective of how they've created it.
Super interesting. Yeah.
All right, Melissa.
Well, I was just what I was going to say is that I think what is super interesting here is that through all three of these, viewpoints, it really is coming back to the designer and the capability, and even from a substrate supplier perspective, that's what we're thinking about too. What are the conversations? What are the connections in the community? How do we keep folks inspired? And so while we are talking a lot here in the beginning about the interface and then the design and how to get it to the printer, from there, we need to make sure that what comes out is exactly what the expectation is. And there is work that we are doing directly with with the OEMs to make sure that the substrate, again, matches the design and the importance of that, as well as the opportunity to make that specification super easy and accessible. Because the design and the production, ultimately, that final output are what are so critical. It would be a lopsided stool if we didn't have all of that connectedness there. And so from our perspective, it's, again, really thinking about who the designer is, what do they need to be successful in the output and production of, whether it's a label, a commercial piece, or a beautiful one art print. How do we continue to make sure that that final outcome meets all of their expectations? And it means working together as a community to make that happen.
Do you feel like, Melissa, do you see that, is there an emphasis on, or do you think there should be a larger emphasis on the substrate itself? Or do you think has it been commoditized are people trying to commoditize it?
We would love to see a larger conversation around the substrate. And when we work really closely with those brands to help create that uniqueness and, brand story that they're looking to do, that's when the magic happens, right? To not just be able to put a sheet of paper in and hope that what you come out on the end is close to what you were envisioning. How do we think about, the texture, the color, the thickness, the final output? Is it going to be, a beautiful box? Is it going to be a sheet of wallpaper? But does that material match the vision you had in the beginning? I think our conversations right now, because the speed of technology is so fast, it's focusing on that end. We just don't want to lose sight of what's possible on the back end.
Gotcha. Now, is there anything from like when you look at from the products that you all have been bringing to the industry? Is there any innovations that you really are fired? You see, like, okay, this could be really a game changer in this sector or this area?
So we continue to look at, and I think this might even lead into your next question, the focus around sustainability and, print on demand is a huge sector and opportunity for all of us. And I apologize, there's a little bit of background noise here. So we've got the opportunity to bring in the sustainability conversation. We have the opportunity to continue to evolve the space into growth segments like packaging. And what's super interesting is perhaps in the world of flexible packaging in particular, that is unique and very inspiring. And then there's the reality, and I think both Mike and Craig touched on this. Everyone is a designer right now. And so, again, how do you continue to evolve that conversation with that community? And that, Rusty, is an entirely green space of what is the next bit of idea that's going to come for that new designer.
Yeah, because everybody now with technology, all of us could be a designer.
This changed everything, right? Yeah. This all of a sudden, I'm now I'm going to take all my pasta recipes and become a cookbook, author, right? I can do anything now, and that's the green space we're trying to, keep a conversation going, because that's where the nuggets and inspiration come from.
Gotcha. All right. So many questions I've got. But one thing I wanted to call out to the audience, if you have questions that you're thinking about, make sure to put those into the Q&A section. I don't think there's been any postage yet, but we've got one more round. If we need to extend, we'll extend into some other additional questions I've got. But if you've got questions for that Q&A round, make sure to ask this so we can get to that at the end, because I do want to cover that. So round 3, the topic is there is some background noise. I don't know if maybe everybody go on mute until you're to help minimize that. The topic for round 3 is going to be identifying high impact trends. The order is going to be Mike, Melissa, and then Craig. And the question is, with so many emerging trends constantly inundating us, it can be overwhelming and distracting, right? Which ultimately can lead to FOMO, and nobody wants that. So how do you navigate this in your daily work life? And which current trend or trends do you believe are truly worth investing your time into, and why? Mike?
Is skateboarding new? I don't know. Possibly not. Not what I can skateboard. Overwhelming trends. All right, if I get to go first, do I get to say AI?
The
key of being I have it on my list. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere, right? I mean,
shiny object.
It's a shiny object. I'm having pasta. Would you like AI with that? Seems to be where we feel we are at the moment. AI this, AI that. I think the thing, and we could be very overwhelming, all right? AI is coming for our jobs. AI is coming for our designs. AI is creating our content. We don't know if it's real or not anymore because maybe an AI generated it. AI is going to run my software AI is going to run my production facility. I think
AI is going to design my piece.
AI is going to mean I can go to the beach and not have to do my day job, right? AI means I can retire one day because something else will have assimilated all my knowledge. I think this could, for everybody, could get very, very, very overwhelming very quickly. And I think the way I'm grappling with this personally is that AI is another technology. All right. There have been many technologies which have been disruptive in our industry. Heck, the Gutenberg press was a disruptive technology in its time, right? The digitization of print was a disruptive technology. Using desktop publishing was a disruptive technology. AI is another disruptive technology. Life goes on, all right? The same way that I don't have to employ or even know a monastery full of monks to be able to get my Bible out by next Tuesday, right? We've come a long way from there. AI will help me be more productive in the future. By be that, I need a template which looks like this. I can describe it. I don't have the skills to do it. I don't even know who to go and ask to build that template for me, but maybe it can build a template that I could then go and make changes to, right? Maybe there's some artwork which I can describe that I haven't got the skills to do a first pass at, but maybe gets me somewhere part way to my destination, all right? I think that's where, as a just seeing it as a technology which will reduce the burden on me and allow me to do more things, or to allow my customers to do more things, right? And generate more stuff. Everything that we are printing has to be created somewhere. And when I speak to designers, their workloads are not going down, right? They're being asked to do more and more stuff faster and faster and faster. So I don't see it so much as a threat in that sense. I see it as a tool to enable us to be more productive, as long as we're aware, and we can hold another conversation about ethics and do we know it's real and all that sort of thing. But yeah, that would be mine. Thank you for letting me.
Is there a certain part within? I mean, when you think about AI, that's a really broad stroke, and I'm sure everybody's going to touch on this within this question. But is there a certain part within AI or in that focus for you that you're spending a lot of your time on,
though? I'm spending a lot of my time on it because all my customers are asking about it and asking for it. And they all, strangely, they all come and ask the question, oh, what have you got? I'd like an AI. What can you give me? Right. And I think part of the strange thing about that is I go back and talk to them and say, what do you need? Right. Because rather than just going into the candy store and trying to say, hey, I'd like an AI. What of all these could I have? It's like, okay, you've got goals to achieve. You've got things you need to do. What are the things you need to do? Maybe this is a solution. Or maybe you just like a shinier screwdriver and a hammer. Whatever. AI is not always the answer to the question of what is your problem. It might be, right? But maybe it can improve your lot some. But it needn't be, and I think some people will try and assume it is going to fix everything for everybody, and that's not. So, sometimes there's a really efficient way of doing it with an existing tool.
Yeah. So before I turn to the next person, though, is where do you use AI the most? How do you use AI the most in your daily?
For me, I'm using AI in conjunction with, let's say, where I might use stock photography, where I need to be a composite of certain things. I need a picture of a cat who's skateboarding wearing a party hat for a birthday card, right? Okay. And yeah, I mean, I can try and find some stock photography that has of a cat or a skateboard or a hat or whatever, and try and composite them together in some way. That's great. Heck, I could even try and find a photographer to take a photograph of a cat wearing a hat on a skateboard. But I can go to an AI prompt and get that, and I can get some really good results relatively quickly.
Gotcha. So you're using it from a design perspective?
I'm using it from a design perspective, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I use it to edit emails. I'm a terrible writer. So like almost now, like 80, I'm going to give my little secret. Like 80%, if you get an email from me, there's a probably 80% chance I've asked AI to edit it because I am horrible at formatting. I go quickly and it makes it so much easier. So,
Yeah.
But AI can
Mike,
help
thanks for sharing that. Melissa, you're up.
I'm up. Okay. Well, then in my space, I had AI down on my list just because it's just interesting. And how are we all thinking about it? And, recently it was if you're not thinking about AI now, you are already too far behind. And I just think about, though, Rusty, to your question, how do you use it? Why are you using it? Where are you using it? Which I think is a big conversation for this group. My second kind of then topic was around the plastic to paper replacement opportunity. This world of how do we eliminate plastic and the truly just natural point towards paper as being that particular resource, and the innovation and conversations that are happening there as well. And whether it is around life cycle assessment. And I think that is a big area that we need to continue to understand and evolve in terms of, what does that mean and how do you support the overall circular economy? And these are all words that are out there, but where and how do they apply to what we're all trying to do? And again, from a substrate perspective, how do we support that vision? But what we hear over and over and over again from our community is help us think about the innovation behind a plastic replacement. We're thinking about what's the next alternative fiber. What is the next, process that we can bring into manufacturing? What can we do to support the learnings and thinkings behind a print on demand, and making sure from a material perspective, we are pushing the boundaries of what's possible, but at the same time doing it in a really responsible way and making sure that there's a balance to the conversation around how we're capturing that information, that data, and really putting it to good use for us all.
That's an interesting one. We eliminated the plastic because there has been a big push across, people saying, how do we get rid of plastic?
I touched on it in the last.
Doing it. Yeah.
I wrapped it into my last kind of rapid fire, but this flexible packaging space is super interesting and really could be a dynamic opportunity for our industry. Is just one example of opportunity, where lightweight, versatile, customizable, all the things that we're talking about from a POD perspective, and then entirely, personalized with the benefits of extended shelf life and, great barrier properties. But where do we go and how do we take it to the next level?
Yeah. That's interesting because, again, that's why I like having these different viewpoints, because I see it from my lens, because it's really easy wherever I see, where the view of the world is shaped by where you stand, right? And so you look at the world from a completely different side, from the supplier, feeding the industry. We're fulfilling, so we require all parts of everybody, right? The software, the platforms, the equipment, the paper, to do our jobs. And so I just never really think about that part of it, but it is such a critical part.
It's a big topic, and everybody, to your point, comes from a different place. And, the easy place to always go to was, okay, what's the certification? Is it FSC or, was it, post-consumer? But the thinking has evolved so much further, and, the opportunity to do something really important together with all of us here in this, discussion and in this, forum today, that's where we get to do something really unique.
It's awesome. Thanks for sharing. Craig, it's on you now.
Yeah, well, I think what I'll do, I'll just give some perspectives on what Mike and Melissa said. I think in terms of AI, we've actually got one of our Hybel employees on the call right now who's just been hired to head up our AI and data team. And so the way that we're looking at that is sort of an opportunity and a sort of threat as well for our customers. So, our customers are large brand owners, right, who are operating in a highly regulated industry where the fines for non-compliance and the PR for non-compliance are significant. So a brand manager's worst nightmare is the idea of the end user being able to create whatever they want. But if you take that nightmare further, you give them AI, right? So it can be pretty disastrous in our world. So the way that we're looking at it is how do we help that user that's so unsophisticated that they can't actually or can or don't want to use a design platform, but instead just want to say, I want a menu that has a beach, a bar, and a bottle of Bacardi, right? And that is literally what we hear. AI can allow us to create a design for that user, and then they can riff on it and create new versions of it until they get to something that they think is close to what they want. And then we'll use a skilled designer to take it from probably 80% to 100. But the kind of caveat that we have is how do we make sure that it's brand compliant and legally compliant before it goes out the door? And that's where we're looking about how do we kind of build guardrails around this to make sure that they can have that kind of creativity from AI, but make sure that something doesn't go out the door that's going to create kind of irreparable damage to the brand or result in some pretty hefty fines. So that's the kind of dynamic we're looking at, as well as, through our system, we capture a lot of data, product data. So if you think about, a lot of the work we do is menus and point of sale materials. We're capturing product data in terms of what items are being stocked and also pricing data. And we're capturing that data and actually kind of feeding it back to our customers to give them insights on what's being sold in the market and at what price. And the next step for us is to take that data and feed it back into the platform. So when a user creates, say, a drinks menu, it can actually suggest pricing based on the average price of a margarita in that zip code or even on that street. And that's where we can kind of really help that designer create something that's actually much better than what they could just do themselves. So I see that as a big opportunity, but we're kind of doing it with some constraints that enterprise customers have. And then I think on the kind of the print space, I think what we're seeing now is that, particularly with suppliers like Taylor, for example, the wealth of products that now can be created on demand is vast, like way, way bigger than it even was a year or two ago. So for us, it's all about how do we expand that product catalog for the user? How do we offer more items on demand? And I know we're going to talk a bit about sustainability, but just to give you a kind of glimpse into our world, we've been to warehouses that are the size of 5 American football fields that are stacked to the rafters full of point of sale. And every 3 months, that point of sale gets thrown out and replaced by more point of sale coming in. And the reason for that is it's over forecasted. There's no visibility into what's currently there, so more gets ordered. And to be honest, there's vested interests in keeping that kind of process going, right? Whether it's the printers or the warehouse management or the brand owners. So we're really disrupting that heavily by saying, guys, you don't have to do that, right? We don't have to be ordering massive quantities of stuff and storing it and distributing it and then disposing of it. There is a better way, and that way is on demand. Yes, it will cost you more per unit, but actually when you add up all the costs of warehousing it and managing it and storing it and then disposing of it, it's a hell of a lot cheaper. And that's sustainability is at the heart of it, right? And I think for me that certain actors in the print industry often talk about kind of sustainability and, they make a big deal out of it. But what they're talking about is like marginal improvements on how do we kind of reduce, move to different stocks or whatever. It's all great, but really the best way to improve sustainability is to print less, right? Don't dispose of 50% of the materials you create, right? And that's probably something nobody in the print industry wants to hear. But if you're playing in the print on demand space, that's where you want to be, right? And we're seeing that happen already, and brand owners are coming to us and saying, look, I've got X amount of money to spend on marketing materials. How can I spend that more efficiently? And my first thing is, well, see that 50% of stock you're throwing out? How about we take the money from that and let's put it into on demand, right? So their total print spend remains the same, but they're just using it more effectively. So we've been on banging this drum for 20 years, but the good thing is people are listening now, and brands are coming to us saying, we want to do this. How do we do it? And now we have the technology and the print solutions to do it.
It's funny you bring that up because earlier this week I had one of my Ask the Expert. I actually was talking with Dana Small, who basically is a marketing procurement person, and she leads it for a big pharmaceutical. And we were talking about that exact same issue as far as getting out of the print, bulk, ship, hold, and fulfill into the on-demand, they were early adopters of it, and they're like, this is ridiculous. Why people, you actually were saving money by going on demand, because the fact that you're able to geo route into the local market, you're reducing your carbon emissions, you're getting points and credits and all these other areas. But at the same time, you're paying to store it, you're paying to pick it, you're paying to pack it, you're paying to ship it. And a lot of times when it's sitting there in a warehouse, people know, oh, I can order it and have it delivered tomorrow. Well, now you're over freight's killing the industry. And that's the topic I am going to get into at one point on this, is just talking about freight, because it's killing us across the entire supply chain. So if anybody's on that wants to be a part of that, let me know. Reach out, because if you've got some insights and thoughts on that, I know it's a hot topic right now. We have got looks like remaining 8 minutes and 40 seconds. I don't see any questions loaded yet in the Q&A part. Actually, I just saw one. It's great. From Jason. Thank you for posting a question. It says, Craig, you had mentioned turn time, and that in the UK you see 2-day end-to-end, yet in the US 4 days end-to-end. What would you attribute to the UK being 2 days faster?
There's two things. One is geography. America is a very, very large place, as I have found out recently. I mean, Mike and I are probably a 7-hour flight apart, yet we're still in the same country, which for somebody living in the UK it's a hard thing to imagine. I mean, we'd be in Moscow or somewhere if we flew 7 hours east. So geography is one, right? The items have to travel further, and we try and not put things on planes. So the way that we kind of get around that, and this is what we've been doing with Taylor and a number of other suppliers, is that when an order comes in, we route it to the nearest possible print facility. So, for example, if the order gets produced in Illinois, it would be produced in the Taylor, Minnesota factory and would be dispatched. So we're reducing the lead times as much as possible. And my goal is to try and get that down so that it's produced in the same town or at least the same state, to try and reduce that travel time, because that saves money, it saves time, but it saves the environment as well. And that's been a big thing for us in the US, is that we are now shipping out to multiple different locations where our incumbents that we compete against are typically shipping out of one. And just to give you an example, we've just gone live in Hawaii. And previously they were air freighting items from Ohio to Hawaii, right? So you can imagine the sustainability impact on that. But we're now producing locally in Hawaii through Taylor and another vendor. And that's a huge game changer, right? Suddenly they can get them out faster, cheaper, and with a hell of a lot less carbon. So that's a big one. And then second to that, I would probably say in Europe in general, we probably just see a slightly higher level of automation in the print facilities. So we work with a really fantastic printer in England called Blue Tree, and another one in Germany called Schatzel. And those guys have been automating orders for probably a decade. And they do a lot of photo books and kind of items of one. So that just works perfectly for us. They don't do any kind of manual kind of order entry or order submission. It's all automated. So we just plug into those guys and then they just knock it out. And they've got the latest technology from HP and others, and it can print it, cut it, fold it, score it, laminate it, put it out the door with almost nobody touching it. Sometimes nobody touches it at all. And that's what creates the speed. So we'll probably see a higher level of that in the UK and Europe, but I'm sure it exists in the US. I'm sure it'll expand as we go forward.
That's great. Thank you for answering that. That question came from Jason from Smart Press. Thanks for asking that. I don't see any other questions yet. If you have some questions, answered. If not, I've got a couple questions I'm going to ask. Any questions? Coming, going once, going twice. All right. I'm going to let one of y'all answer this next question I've got. How does your business, how does your business manage scalability as demand fluctuates? And what strategies do you recommend for maintaining efficiency and quality at scale? I'll let one of y'all answer that while we wait for somebody, if there's any other questions. Who wants to take that? Because it is a tough one with print on demand, right? You don't know what's going to come, when it's going to come, and how often it's going to come. You hope it happens all the time.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean,
Craig, I think that goes to you because
I mean,
supply chain side
we used to have our own in-house print facility back in the day, as I said. And so I experienced that rise and fall in demand, right? And any printer, knows what that Q4 peak can be like, right? You can't get enough people in, you can't have enough capacity, and you're working 24/7. And then, in January, you're twiddling your thumbs, right? That was one of the reasons I moved out of that. So for us, we don't have that problem because our technology scales almost limitlessly, and because we're using third parties for the back end, we can, rise and fall our demand as it goes. It's a hard one to get around, to be honest, but that's where I think diversifying into whether it's different countries or different product categories is really important. And I think as the on-demand catalog expands, hopefully we'll see a bit more diversification and slightly less fluctuations in the market. But it's a tough one to work around.
Okay. And certainly from the large scale manufacturing side, it is the it is one of the things that we spend a lot of time working from a data analytics perspective. What can we continue to do? How can we continue to see what the trends are so that we are ebbing and flowing manufacturing as needed? You don't want to sit with 2 years worth of product, but yet at the same time, you don't want to be running out. I think the analytics space has become critically important, but I cannot, underscore the value of good forecasting from our customers, which that's why I kind of tossed it to Craig to start with. And I know there's lots of folks here, on the call today, that goal to work together to really understand what's in the pipeline, what's coming, the communication required behind that to really help us understand where are you saying things, what do you think you're going to need, and how do we help you support it? Because something like a paper machine, you just don't turn off and on and change at that scale. And so the forecasting from our customers is critical, and then we back it up with our own analytics. And it is not a perfect science, that is for sure. At this point, maybe AI will help us with that one.
I think anybody that's sitting on this call right now that's in print on demand can appreciate the fact that forecasts are not ever accurate.
They're not accurate. I chuckled. I'm like, if you guys could solve that, then we would always be in stock and never out, or not in the other situation sitting with too much inventory, right? So.
Well, good. Well, I don't see any other questions, but that's okay. I mean, I think we have like 2 minutes, 1 minute, 39 seconds or whatever left. But I really do want to thank all of you for joining us for this very first episode of the Print on Demand Playbook, especially to the awesome panelists for sharing all their eye-opening insights. Really, honestly, it was a lot of fun listening and learning from you all. To the audience, thank you all for being a part of this. And I hope each of you will walk away with a little bit, some new ideas that help you enhance your business. And if you did find this valuable, please help us grow the Print on Demand Playbook community by sharing it with your network. It takes a village. And a big shout out once again to D-Scoop for everything they do for our industry and for their support with this episode. So thank y'all. Make sure to reach out and let them know we appreciate them. And make sure also to mark your calendars for our next episode on Thursday, October 3rd, where I'll be sitting down talking with Jim Toll from Canva about Canva's ambitious sustainability goals and how they are pushing the print industry to find more innovative ways to improve sustainability. I promise it's going to be a fascinating discussion with just a great guy. So thank you all for being part of this journey with me at D-Scoop. And until next time, stay curious and keep working on your Print on Demand Playbook. Thank you.
Rusty, thank you for hosting.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for being a part of this.
Thanks so much.